Hey there! Today we're talking about heat management in goats, the basics that actually matter, what I learned during one brutal kidding season, some coat science that surprised me, and a practical tool I wish I'd had sooner. I'm also going to tell you about the time I dunked a kid in a water trough. Let's get to it. Hey there, welcome to GoatWise. I'm Millie Bradshaw, animal scientist and rancher. Here we talk meat goats, feeding strategies, goat fencing, and livestock management that holds up in real life. If you care about raising goats well and building systems that actually work, you're in the right place. Let's talk livestock. If this podcast has been helpful, leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Scroll down to ratings and reviews, tap the stars, and leave a few sentences. It helps more serious livestock producers find the show, and I read every one of them. Then go grab the free kidding due date chart at goatwise.com/kidding-chart. That also gets you on the insider email list. Link is in the show notes. Here's what's happening on the ranch. The last doe finally kidded, a big single buck kid, and that is the official end of the 2026 kidding season. The full report is coming soon, and I am excited to put those numbers together. Virtual fence training is going well, with one notable exception. We had a storm blow through with some wild lightning and thunder, and it caused the goats to blow right through the virtual boundary. I don't blame them. The lightning was close and they were scared. But it was a good reminder that no matter how well the training is going, a physical perimeter fence is not optional. That's not a criticism of the system, that's just reality. We moved the goats into town and put them on some irrigated pasture release from my dad. They're still in training mode with the collars and doing well. Hay came in this week. It's expensive this year. We knew it would be going in with the drought and short hay crops across the region. But I'm hopeful. If these virtual collars do what I think they're going to do, and we're able to extend our grazing season and access ground we couldn't use before, I'm expecting to have hay left over at the end of this coming winter rather than running short. That's the goal. We'll see how it goes. All right, let's talk about summer heat. But first, I want to be upfront about something. Our climate is not like most people's climate. We are high altitude, dry, UV intense, but we are not extreme heat by most standards. A lot of you are going to breach 100 degrees many times this summer. We might, but we don't very often. So I'm not a hot weather expert, and I don't want to pretend otherwise. What I know is what we've learned here, and some of it I figured out the hard way. The water trough incident being a prime example, and I'll get to that. Water is your number one all the time. Heat, cold, drought, winter, always. You will save yourself so many problems if you make sure your goats always have clean water they will actually drink. Not stagnant water, not green water, not water that's been sitting in the sun in a dirty trough for a week. Water they will drink. If you wouldn't drink the water in that trough, the goats are probably not drinking enough either. And if they're not drinking enough going into heat stress, you are fighting uphill from the start. Mineral matters too. Minerals supports electrolytes and helps keep your animals in good shape before the heat even gets challenging. I'll be honest, I'm a little behind on mineral right now, which is not ideal. We had a double whammy. Our platform scale reached the end of its life, and I can't mix mineral without a scale to weigh the ingredients. I had to order a new one. Ranch life. Multiple things go at once, and you're just managing the order of operations. But the new scale came in, and I'm mixing mineral today because it's important, and they should have it in front of them. Now, I've talked about our overall approach a lot for many different situations, and I will here again because I think it sets the context for everything else. We are more about preparing our goats to handle what's coming than protecting them from it. We don't pamper them from the elements in a big way. If there's a genuinely freakish event, we'll step in. But for the most part, if they have to figure out how to handle the heat on their own, they'll be better prepared when the next challenge comes. And the goats we've built, the ones that have not been coddled, they handle it well. I'm actually noticing something this summer that I think is important. We've had temperatures approaching what I'd call a really hot June, similar to what I'm about to tell you about. And the does are just out in the pasture, bedded down like normal. Last year, they were under the overhang of the barn for shade almost every day. This year, they're not. We just moved them to our irrigated pasture in town, and there's a shelter out there they could be in. The does are not in it. The kids are playing in it like it's a jungle gym. The does are out in the open, completely fine. I don't know if that's selection. We've kept the goats that have thrived here. I don't know if it's that we've gotten better at preparing our animals rather than protecting them. It's probably both, but I'm noticing it and it's interesting. Now, let me tell you about the summer I learned a lot about heat and goats. This was a year we were still kidding behind electric netting before we had our perimeter fence up. The goats were stuck wherever we had them. They couldn't go seek shade on their own. And we had a hot, brutal June during kidding season. We had a lot of kids that really struggled in the heat. The 2 to 3 day old kids seemed to be able to handle it, but newborns with the sun beating straight down on them, it was hard, really hard. One thing I saw that summer that I will never forget. My mentor, Yvonne, had told me the Spanish does would do this, and I was honestly a little skeptical until I saw it with my own eyes. Those does would push out their kids and then stand directly over them to shade them from the sun, just tent them with their own body. Not all of the does did this, but most of them. And I thought, that's really something. That is instinct doing exactly what it was built to do. But it was still brutal. During the day, we'd have kids flat out panting, obviously in distress. We'd grab them and bring them into the barn in the shade. I hated taking them from their moms, but we didn't feel like we had a choice. There was one kid in particular, a big kid, and every single day he would end up flat on his side, panting hard. Day after day, we're packing this same kid into the barn. Finally, on about day 3 with that same kid, I just dunked him in the water trough. The water wasn't cold, it had been sitting there a while, but I just got him wet and then set him down, and he jumped up and ran off. That was all he needed to break the cycle. I want to be really clear about that, though. That was an impulsive, risky decision, and it happened to work that time. You can put a kid into shock doing something like that. I would not repeat it. I would not recommend it. Don't function from desperation the way I did in that moment. What we did by that summer, though too late to actually use in the extreme heat, was shade cloth. We haven't had to put them up since because we haven't had a season that bad again, or maybe our goats are more heat tolerant, but they're in the barn ready to go. A word on shade cloth versus shelter, especially metal shelters, because this is worth knowing. A metal building in extreme heat often gets hotter inside than it is outside. The animals aren't in direct sun, but metal absorbs heat and it builds up in there like an oven. So don't assume your goats are better off in a metal shelter just because it's a shelter. They may not be. Shade cloth has a real advantage over a structure in that situation. Air moves through it. You're getting shade without trapping heat. You drive some T-posts, stretch the cloth across, and the goats can get underneath. They don't need a lot of clearance, just 4 or 5 feet. Air circulates underneath and through the cloth, and in more humid climates, shade cloth allows moisture to escape from the area where your goats are congregating, which matters because when animals pile into one shaded spot, that becomes a place where sickness and parasites can build up fast. If you're using shade cloth instead of a permanent structure, you can move it. Mobile shade means you're not creating a permanent congregation point that becomes a problem over time. Ground cover is the other practical piece I want to mention. Bare soil in direct sun gets extremely hot. We're talking surface temperatures that are significantly higher than air temperature. If you can get your goats onto ground that has forage cover, fresh grass, something green, the ground temperature where they're lying is going to be meaningfully cooler. This is actually one more reason we moved our does to the irrigated pasture right now. Good grass coverage means they're not lying on a heat trap. Last thing, coat condition and what it actually means for heat tolerance. We have everything from white, red-headed Boer goats to fully black Spanish goats and every color in between. And I have never noticed all the dark-colored goats heading for shade while the light ones are fine. They all seem to manage pretty similarly. And that tracks with what the research says. Coat color matters less than coat smoothness. It's the slick, smooth summer coat that makes the difference. Sweat can evaporate off a slick coat. A rough, uneven coat that hasn't shed cleanly traps moisture against the body, and that animal has to work harder to regulate temperature. So if you've got a goat that's rough-coated going into summer, maybe needs some mineral, maybe just hasn't shed well, that's a functional disadvantage, not just a cosmetic one. The goat that has slicked off beautifully is going into summer heat better prepared than the one that hasn't. One more reason coat condition is worth paying attention to as a general health indicator and even a culling and breeding factor. So, know your climate. Mine is probably not yours. Know your animals. Healthy, prepared goats handle heat better than compromised ones. Keep clean water in front of them always. Get mineral in front of them. If you need shade, shade cloth on movable T-posts is affordable, allows airflow, won't trap heat, and won't become a permanent congregation problem. Get them onto ground with forage coverage if you can. And if you ever find yourself dunking a kid in a water trough out of sheer desperation, well, you're not alone. Just don't make a habit of it. See you next week. Hey there. Thanks for listening today. If this episode was helpful, share it with another producer who's raising goats. And if you haven't already, leave a quick review on Apple Podcasts. It helps more serious livestock owners find the show. As always, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for veterinary advice. I'll see you next week here on GoatWise.